everybody. Welcome to the You Matter podcast. I'm here with my dear friend Beth Silva. I've been counting the moments to get back on the microphone and in front of the video camera with you. I saw a post that you made on your Huna Healing Instagram the other day, and when I saw what you had to say, I was just like, I gotta get her on the podcast. I'm gonna put a bug in your ear and put it out there again. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. And you and I feel like we've covered a lot of similar ground. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk, it feels familiar. What you say resonates so deeply with me.
And same when I watch your stuff, I'm like, yep, completely makes sense to me too. I love it.
Yeah. So I love the fact that we've got together today to do this talk.
Thank you.
So in your post the other day, you said something and it really resonated with me. You were talking about people want the truth right now. Mm. And you were talking about authenticity. Mm-hmm. And I hear that word come up a lot, mm-hmm. not just with you, but with other people too. Mm-hmm. Let's start there. Let's dig into that. How do we find our truth, and how do we become very authentic?
It's a great question. I actually wasn't sure which video you were referring to. So thinking back about it, though, I have posted a few about wanting the truth and wanting to be authentic. And being authentic really has sort of become a bit of a buzzword lately because there were some studies done. And I'd like to be able to quote them, but I can't. So maybe we can add them into the video at the end. But there was a study done that had to do with authenticity actually being one of the highest frequencies. And I'll do a bit of research and come back to that point. But being authentic, I feel like is so important right now because for so many reasons. But we're so sick as a society of having to try to do the guesswork about what's true and what isn't true. Mm-hmm. And we have seen so much almost competition, if you believe in competition, about who is better, who's the best, who's going to be the best. And it's almost like people are trying to outdo each other. But in doing that, they've created this divisive nature in the society. And so now people are just craving something real. They're craving people just being who they really are. So what does that mean? What does that look like? And that's something unique and individual to each person. So like for me, I can be really thoughtful, and I can quote things. Well, I would like to say I could quote scientific facts, but obviously not in this case. But I can quote science. I can talk about quantum physics. I can talk about all these other things, but I can also be really silly. Yeah. And I can be fun, and I can laugh and joke. And we kind of had a bit of a laugh earlier, and that makes life fun. That's what makes life authentic and real. And people can really feel that. They can feel when you're being real, and they can feel when you're being fake. And people don't want fake anymore. They want something real. And that is the truth. People want the truth. Mm-hmm. So and I don't know if that answers your question.
But it does. And I think that we sort of have been living in a bit of a facade for a while now. Mm-hmm. And, and I talked about this like several years ago, how we were constantly posting our life as this highlight reel mm-hmm. of ups and downs. And mm-hmm. and then currently there's so much bullshit out there. Mm-hmm. There's so much untruth out there. Mm-hmm. And I think it's causing people to say, what is true? Mm-hmm. And the truth that is most applicable for my life, for your life, is your truth, mm-hmm. my truth.
Exactly.
And I think that's the truth that we're so desperately seeking at this time. And we're not going to find that truth outside of ourselves. And if you take a minute and look outside yourself, you're going to find a lot of reasons to say, yeah, there's not a lot of truth out there. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of facade. The world is mirroring, sort of what we've been doing for a long time. Mm-hmm. If we do something, we post our lives as a facade, and like we live these perfect little lives, then the world's going to reflect that back to us. Yep. And we see that. And so I think we need the truth at this time.
We do.
And the truth is in us. We need our truth.
Yeah.
We don't need to be fed a narrative to follow along. And that's sort of the gist of what I've been catching on your posts.
And it's interesting that you point that out, because in saying it, it was almost like there's a piece of inauthenticity in that, even in that post. Because if I was being really direct, it was a political post. It was about politics. It was about COVID. It was about all the bullshit that's gone on. But I didn't say it like that. Mm-hmm. So even in that post is a little bit of inauthenticity as to not offend people. But it really doesn't matter who we're offending or who we're not offending, because the people who are truly with us are going to be with us. And the more we do continue to look externally for that validation, you're again continuing to seek things that are not authentic. So the more real we are with ourselves, and as you said, you find that from within yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And I think you even teach this in some of your writing, in who you are in nature, your personality. As we connect not only to ourselves but to the Creator, to the things that feel right for us, for the positive higher vibrational emotions like love, joy, inspiration, happiness, things that make us feel really complete and full. When we're connected to that, you have no choice but to be authentic. And so the more you see people emanating that in their life, so the attempt at like posting Facebook reels and making things look perfect is an attempt at gaining that. But that's not real, right? The reality is that we are all flawed too. And so we all experience all of these negative emotions too. And that's okay, because that is part of being authentic. But the catch in that is to then be able to regulate your system, to go within, to say, I know how to soothe those negative feelings and emotions so that I can get back to a place of feeling love and inspiration and joy and all of those things, right? Those beautiful things come from within us, and they come from our ability to connect and regulate with Creator. You agree with that, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I really think that's what people are looking for, is they're looking for that leadership in that. And, you know, some people will find it in religion, and some people find it in spirituality, and some people find it in different things. And it really doesn't matter what that thing is, as long as for them, it feels right in that moment, you know? Mm-hmm. And I do have a sense or a feeling, just even in my patients and my client base, a lot of people have leaned more into the religious factor, which is fine, as long as that's making them feel really good, but away from the political spectrum as well, because we're not going to find anything real or authentic in that space. It's a narrative. And so that narrative sometimes will be good for some people and maybe not so good for others. Mm-hmm. Even in our own political spectrum right now with what's happening, everyone has a different perspective.
So when I think about really being authentic, it means that I need to constantly shift my focus from outside to within. Mm-hmm. To authentically be you have to know yourself.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And for the most part, if a lot of the masses don't know who they are. They mm-hmm. don't have a remote idea who they are, because most of their organic time is spent looking outward mm-hmm. and then discussing what is outside of themselves. Mm-hmm. And so the authenticity that we're I think that we need at this time is going to be found by that turning your attention and focus inward. Mm-hmm. It's leaning into a deeper aspect of yourself. And so a practice for us is to, watch your mind. And this goes back to stuff I've been teaching for years, mm-hmm. watching what is going on in your head. Mm-hmm. Are you thinking about people that you don't even know? Mm-hmm. Are you thinking, like, if you knew somebody in the town you're in is a complete liar mm-hmm. and self-serving and is willing to take from the poor and make himself richer, would you think about that person all day?
Is that a direct question? I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't either.
Right.
But this is what's happening
in the world.
What's happening.
Yeah.
we constantly put all this focus and energy on that person. We're putting all that energy into them, and it's such a distraction from getting into something much bigger, which is, the part of me that the most authentic part of me is connected to you. And it's so, the authentic part of me is so vast that it would take 1,000 lifetimes to actually really explore it. But the first step inward is to make that step inward. We have to step out of what's going on outside of us.
I agree.
And to notice when our mind is drifting off into these dialogues about other people's agendas.
And that's the whole purpose, really, of the political agenda, is to separate us from our authentic self. And so this is why now all of a sudden there's such a lean on being authentic. As the political spectrum starts to amp up, we are now starting to gain our power back. And so I think in that video I had said something about we're tired of the bullshit and we are emerging finally as a society of critical thinkers, where we are starting to really understand the whole idea of going within to find our peace and our love, because that's the only thing that's going to save us from all of the negativity that's happening. And focusing on the negativity isn't going to get us anything. It's not going to get us anywhere. So we need to find our authenticity. And exactly as you said, that happens by going within, and it happens by sitting with what you know to be true for yourself. And that's ancient practice, right? That's muscle testing. That's kinesthetic testing. That's everything that we do when we regulate our nervous system. That's all of the healing modalities. That's what we're trying to achieve within that. So that is the very nature of what we're trying to achieve in humanity.
And I've been talking about this here and there in some of my podcast. I talked about how divide and rule is an old Babylonian war technique. And that's sort of what everything outside of us is designed to do, is to divide us up, and then we become powerless. So by noticing how divided of a society we've become considerably weaker in that process.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that goes back to Babylonian times. They knew that back then. If you divide people, you segregate them, or you start dividing boundaries between a group of people and another group of people, and you cause them to feel that they're separate, they're not very powerful.
And make them question each other and their motives. And that's what's been happening, was what was happening. But depending on where you put your focus, you can now start to see the collective coming together and the vibration raising, and us really seeking out what's true for us individually. And for me, my hope and belief is that's love. Like I really do feel that on a daily basis. I feel it within myself. And just as you're saying, it would take a lifetime for you to be able to go within and research that authenticity within yourself. That love that you have, that's tenfold out there, right? So as you're saying, it would take you a lifetime to explore that. That is how much love is within each of us to be able to give to each other. So the more we're tapping into that space of our authenticity, we're also enabling ourselves to love each other. And that is what's going to bring us together and create that connection. And that doesn't come from the external. That actually comes from the internal. So the more internal we become in our own knowing and our own sense of identity, the more we're able to actually really love ourselves and love each other. And that's the goal. That's the goal in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think another tool that we have at our disposal, and that we've always had this tool, and it's a tool that we get to know ourselves better, is learning how to become powerful creators in our life. My work every day is about creation. In and out of my office here. When I'm tattooing, it's about creation. When I'm outside of tattooing, I'm writing, it's about creation. I'm constantly creating. And that I've had this intimate connection with creation, and I understand it at a certain depth. And I know it's bottomless. I'm going to keep going further and further into this topic. But the fastest way to step out of the bullshit out here is what's in here that wants to move out. Get quiet and listen to yourself and say, what am I called to do right now?
Yeah.
And start moving that creation, because there's all the forces in nature have conspired every second of our life and moved all these forces for us to move a creation. Every moment of our life, there's a potential to move creation. And when I talk about moving creation, it's just even talking right now, this is a creation.
Yeah. Every
second of our life, there's all this potential energy sitting there waiting for us to harness it and move it out of us. And when you start to become a transfer station for the creation that wants to move through you, you start tapping into a much bigger aspect of who and what we are, walk in the power that we have while we're walking this little earth.
I love that. I love that so much. It's so beautifully put. And just to add a little bit to the point of creation, that is why we're here. And finding that from within is so important. And to move, I love how you said to move through it. So as you're moving through it, the creation is literally coming from within you too. So that brings you back to the whole authenticity piece, because you can't create without being authentic. They have to be together. And the creation is really co-creation. So you're creating within yourself, within the love that exists, within the creator, whatever you believe in, whatever you want to call it. And it's different. In my opinion, in my belief, it's a bit different than manifesting or drawing things to you, because even in manifesting or trying to draw things to you, you're creating a little bit of resistance, right? In the desire, there is resistance. In the desire, there is a feeling of lack. So if you want something, there has to be a feeling of lack. So that comes from fear. But in creation, there's none of that. And in authenticity, there's none of that.
Yeah.
And so when you're saying you're bringing it from within you and out, that it's just, I love the way that you put that. It's so beautifully put and ties in so well with being authentic. So those two really go well together. And I really believe that people are seeking that now. They're seeking those answers.
In manifesting creation from our desire versus moving the creation that resides within us is the difference between conditional love and unconditional love.
Right. Yeah.
So that conditional love, there's a little fringe, a little tidbit of love in there, but it's really not.
Yeah. It's more ego-based, right?
Ego.
Yeah.
And so unconditional love is just that uninhibited, raw power that love holds. Well, creation's the same way. Creation, and that's where all these things that came out about law of attraction, and yeah, it's all true.
Yeah.
However, but it's more about law of desire.
Yeah.
And you're only tapping into a percentage of the power that creation holds when you're moving a desire, because it's coming out of the ego, it's coming out of your mind. When I talk about moving creation, it's the creations that reside independent of your mind. There's creations that are sitting in every one of us that wants to move through us, and we're just a means to transfer. We're not the source of creation, but a means to transfer that into this world. And I talk about this all the time, like a hydro line is a means to transfer power, but it's not the source of it. There's only one creator, it's God.
Yeah.
And so we get to be transfer stations of divine creation. And when we move into that type of creation, we become the most powerful creators in the universe, because we're actually moving God. We're making God visible in this world through creation, which is.
And I believe that was what Jesus was here for, as a representation of exactly that and what we're capable of. So that might be offensive to some people, but that's my belief. And that's my authenticity.
I think we need to move beyond the days of worrying about offending people.
Yeah.
The people that are offended need to be offended and offend in your own space. And, I'm I'm not going to be offended if you're offended.
I'm not offended about anything. Not about anything. Well,
and not that I don't have compassion or care.
Mm-hmm.
That's a much different thing.
It is a much different thing. And I'm tired of doing that anyway. I just want to be able to say what I want to say and do what I want to do and move with that. And I really feel like everyone else should be able to do that too. And why not? That's what we're here for. We're here to celebrate the differences and the unique qualities of each of us. And that means being able to express yourself as you are.
That's right.
So enough of all of it, right? It's just, I'm just done with it.
So today we've talked, we've unpacked a whole bunch, and I think we've left you with more questions than answers, and that's probably a good thing. I challenge you to get very curious about some of the things that Beth and I spoke about today. Hopefully we get together and dig into some more topics. I think there's
I would love that, yeah.
So much more to explore.
There's so much more to explore.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But thanks for tuning in and listening to our conversation, our little rant, our authenticity in the way we see it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you.